The short story Legacy of May 4th is a rare comedy work by Zhang Ailing. When talking about Zhang Ailing, what everyone thinks of are the characters with tragic fates in her works. But this work completely subverted many people's perceptions. Zhang Ailing used humor to deeply satirize the love concept of that era. The whole story unfolds with the love between Luo and Miss Fan as the main line. We watch Luo fight for free love and feudal marriage. In the end, he won the fight, but found that it was completely different from what he wanted. Originally, they wanted to fall in love and grow old together, but in the end they ended up being a couple living under the same roof. The absurdity of Chinese love is vividly demonstrated in this short story. 1. Luo and Miss Fan's extramarital affair. In China at that time, falling in love was a completely new experience. And just this little bit was quite interesting. Luo and Miss Fan are ambiguous in this little taste of love. At that time, Luo was teaching in a middle school in Hangzhou, and Miss Fan was studying in a school in Hangzhou. They often traveled together and gradually developed a secret love. In fact, Luo had a wife in his hometown, and for a long time he and Miss Fan were only in love but not polite. But slowly, the relationship between the two began to change. "Are you going back this Saturday?" Miss Fan asked. "I probably won't miss it this time," Luo replied with a smile. "If you don't go back, my mother will make trouble." Every time Luo goes home these days, he always feels more and more sorry for Miss Fan. Before and after returning, Miss Fan's unhappiness gradually became more obvious. The relationship between the two has developed to this point, and Luo has only two options, either to return to the family or to divorce his wife. He chose the second option and filed for divorce when he returned home. But the marriage was not that easy to divorce, and his wife didn't make any big mistakes. From Luo's mother to relatives to the patriarch, everyone opposed his divorce, and lobbyists came one after another. At this time, Luo's determination was very strong. He returned to Hangzhou and ignored the affairs of his hometown. He only went back once in 2 years. That time, his mother was seriously ill, and the old lady tried her best to save his marriage, and even asked her daughter-in-law to dress up beautifully and go to Luo's room. But Luo didn't appreciate it and humiliated her. The marriage lasted for 6 years before the divorce was finalized. At this time, Miss Fan was already 26 years old, and she was already an old girl of that era. Miss Fan's great youth was wasted on Luo, but in the end, there was no result. Miss Fan's family obstructed him in every possible way, thinking that Luo was deliberately delaying and wanted Miss Fan to make him younger. It's also possible that he didn't have money to pay alimony. Miss Fan's family asked someone to inquire about his family property, and found that it was all in the hands of his wife, and he had no money at all. As a result, Miss Fan's family disagreed even more and began to find another marriage for her. This is the Chinese style of extramarital affairs. When a man works hard for his career outside and meets a young and beautiful girl, he doesn't want a lousy wife. But such men often don't have much real ability. They just covet the vanity brought by young girls. This kind of extramarital affair seems extremely firm, but in fact it is completely vulnerable. It's just that people who are involved in extramarital affairs have to prove their true love even more because of external resistance. Miss Fan was stupid and thought Luo was a reliable person. A marriage has been divorced for 6 years. How true do you think he is? And young girls have several more 6 years. In extramarital affairs, men lose little, while women often lose their youth and reputation. It is really a loss-making business. 2 extramarital affairs are like a gorgeous cheongsam. It is difficult for an extramarital affair to have a happy ending, because the two have a crisis of trust from the moment they get together. The same goes for Luo and Miss Fan. Luo's divorce has not been settled for a long time, and Miss Fan starts a blind date. Her blind date was a pawn shop owner, who was introduced to her by her family. Luo heard about this from Miss Zhou. Miss Zhou and Miss Fan are good classmates, so they are naturally better informed. Luo was very dissatisfied with this, and Miss Fan was even more angry. Before the misunderstanding was solved this time, Miss Zhou told Luo that Miss Fan had agreed to get married with the pawn shop owner, and the engagement ring was a large diamond ring. This man Luo has always been a coward. Before the matter was clarified, he decided that Miss Fan didn't want him anymore. At that time, Luo's divorce was already quite mature, and he only needed to give his wife a considerable amount of alimony. He got divorced and Miss Fan was no longer where he was, which was a huge blow to Luo. Of course, he was not convinced and immediately asked the matchmaker to arrange a marriage for him. Within 3 months, he married a girl from the Wang family. The marriage between Miss Fan and the pawn shop owner did not work out. It was said that the pawn shop owner could not accept new women, and it was also said that he disliked Miss Fan for having a boyfriend. After Luo got married, he met Miss Fan once, and it was a friend who tried his best to bring her together. Old lovers meet, old feelings are rekindled, and broken mirrors are reunited. This time, Luo is facing divorce again, but no one sympathizes with Luo anymore. Everyone thinks he is a treacherous scumbag. This divorce took 5 years and left the family bankrupt. However, the relationship between Luo and Miss Fan quietly changed. Miss Fan, who was once so arrogant, has become more and more aware of the crisis as she gets older. Miss Fan is also struggling. The object of her struggle is the erosion of time and the man's nature of liking the new and hating the old. Her hairstyle and clothing have been carefully studied, and they are a subtle compromise between popular styles and memories. She catered to his every state of mind, not blindly conforming. She read all the books he gave her from cover to cover. She adored Shelley, and she continued to do so for 10 years. All extramarital affairs are cloaked in the guise of love, but their true colors are nothing more than a transaction. Women covet men's money or experience, while men only covet their youth and beauty. When a man loses his money and charm, he also loses weight in a woman's heart. If a woman's beauty is lost, a man's love will also cease. Miss Fan and Luo had been entangled for more than 10 years and finally got married, but it was not as expected. When there was no card game, she would lie in bed all day at home eating melon seeds. She didn't bother to change her clothes. She wore a dirty old robe and didn't mend the torn crotch. When the ties were torn, she pinned them with a pin. She went out. She was still wearing the same clothes as when she was a bride, bright red and green, which accentuated the yellow and thin face. Luo felt that she had simply changed as a person. The white rose of Miss Fan finally turned into a sticky rice stick on her lips. There are 3 reasons for the love tragedy of Miss Fan and Luo. 1. Their love transcends morality. If a relationship is not pure at the beginning, it is difficult to have a good ending, because this kind of emotion is inherently mixed with calculation and distrust. Luo can divorce his wife for Miss Fan, and Miss Fan may also question whether Luo will betray her in the future. Miss Fan can steal other people's husbands, and Luo will question whether it is easy for her to seduce men. Therefore, when he heard about her blind date with the pawn shop owner, he was convinced that Miss Fan had changed her mind. Second, Luo is a weak and irresponsible person. A man like Luo is not a good partner at all. He betrayed his 2 wives and had no sense of responsibility. Marriage is like child's play to him, and he has lost his most basic respect. In his first 2 marriages, the divorce lasted for 6 years and the divorce lasted for 4 years, which shows that he is not independent enough or determined enough. But Miss Fan took these as evidence of love, but he didn't know that such a man was unreliable for being indecisive. Third, Miss Fan's immaturity. Miss Fan is like a child from beginning to end, and the way she handles things is equally childlike. Knowing that Luo had a family, he still had expectations. When his expectations failed, he went on a blind date to take revenge on Luo. After marrying Luo, she had no business ability. A girl like Miss Fan will not be happy when she marries Luo, and it will be difficult for her to be happy when she marries anyone else. A truly happy woman can make mature decisions and have the wisdom to manage her life, instead of being like a moth and relying on others. The extramarital affair between Miss Fan and Luo is destined to be a gorgeous cheongsam. When the storm comes, their true colors are revealed. 3 one husband and 3 wives, an absurd ending. The ending of Legacy of May 4th seems to be good, but in fact it is extremely absurd. Luo brought his 2 ex-wives to his side, and together with Miss Fan, they formed a situation of 1 husband and 3 wives. And the reason for bringing them back is equally ridiculous. The reason why he brought Miss Wang back was because others heard about his unhappy marriage with Miss Fan. And Miss Wang had not yet remarried, so they encouraged him to get back together with her. As for the Wang family, they were also willing to watch their daughter die from the same fate, so the matter became a matter of course. Now that Ms. Wang has been brought back, the first wife should also be brought back. At this time, Luo didn't care about Miss Fan's thoughts at all. Although Miss Fan committed suicide because of these things, he could only compromise at the critical moment. She calls Ms. Wang's brother and sister-in-law eldest brother and sister-in-law. Jin said that the food is not good. I live too far away, so it's not convenient to buy food. And I can't hire a good cook. The house is too small, not enough to live in. Otherwise I would have been there early. I persuaded him to take your young lady back. Of course you should come back. You can't live in your parents' house all your life. Of course, the life of one man and 3 wives may seem very nourishing to others, but in fact it is not easy. The 2 ex-wives received a lot of alimony when they divorced, but neither of them was willing to pay a penny for Luo. Miss Fen is the poorest and complains the most. Luo is under a lot of pressure. Not only mental pressure, but also life pressure, because he has to support 3 wives, their children, and servants. Zhang Ailing wrote this at the end of this novel. This was already 1936, a monogamous society in name at least. And he was swimming on the lake with his 3 lovely wives. On the rare occasions when he complained to his friends twice, his friends always made fun of him and said, "At least you don't have to find someone else to play with. It's just a table of mahjong behind closed doors." How ironic. What is the irony? 1. Free love may not necessarily lead to happiness at that time. Free love was just emerging, and everyone began to realize the ignorance and feudalism of old-style marriage. Therefore, in the minds of some young people, happiness can only be achieved through free union. However, you see, Miss Fen and Luo are in a free love, and they still cannot escape the dullness and betrayal after marriage. Second, everyone has their own plans in marriage. Everyone thinks of marriage as sacred, but in fact marriage is full of calculations and workarounds. The calculation showed that when Luo's 2 wives divorced him, they had to pay high alimony. Even if I came back to him later, I wouldn't want to spend a penny more. The work is reflected in the harmonious scene of 1 husband and 3 couples. In fact, they have no feelings for Luo at all, but it is just because of the pressure of public opinion. Some people say they can't understand Zhang Ailing's May 4th legacy. In fact, it is not difficult to understand that she is satirizing Chinese-style love and marriage. Everyone talks about love, but in fact they are full of ferocity.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.